Hello, my name is Javier Becerra, and I'm the Attorney General for the state of California. The topic of this educational video is close to my heart. You see, I'm the father of 3 daughters and the brother of 3 sisters. And as a congressman, I fought to reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act to combat domestic violence against all women. What you'll learn in this video is important to each one of us because the rates of violence and abuse in our country are astounding and totally unacceptable. Domestic violence affects more than 12 million people in our country each year. In California, domestic violence homicides comprise over 10% of all homicides in the state. 4 out of 5 American Indian and Alaska Native women in their lifetime have experienced rape, physical violence, and are stalking by an intimate partner. Domestic violence is an epidemic, and we all can play a part in ending it. The issue that we are addressing today is the enforcement of tribal protection orders, a challenge faced by many tribal communities. This video and the information bulletin issued by my office will provide you with guidance on what to do when presented with a tribal court order. I urge judges, law enforcement officers, and all our justice partners to watch this video and use it at educational events. It will take all of us working together to prevent and end domestic violence. I'd like to thank the Judicial Council's Tribal Court and State Court Forum, the California State Sheriff's Association, and all our justice partners who paved the way for the solution that we are presenting in this video. Thank you all very much.
Hello, I'm Judge Abby Abenanti. I'm the Chief Judge of the Yurok Tribal Court and the co-chair of the Judicial Council's Tribal Court State Court Forum. With me today is California's Chief Deputy Attorney General, Kate Kennelly. We're very pleased to be here together presenting this very important public safety message about domestic violence. We depend on our tribal and state courts to hear domestic violence cases and to issue appropriate orders. And both courts depend on law enforcement to, when they see a protection order, whether it's issued by a tribal court judge or a state court judge, to enforce it immediately. We hope the information we have to share with you today will address a problem we're having in some parts of California. The following short video illustrates that problem.
Officer, excuse me. This man is following me, and that's a violation of a restraining order that I have against him.
Can I see this, please?
That paper is worthless, officer. It comes from a tribal court, not Superior Court.
And how do I know that this is a valid order, ma'am?
Well, you could call the court clerk, and they can tell you that it's valid. And also, it has a judge's signature, and then there's the court stamp right there.
Well, I'll have to call in to find out if this is valid. You wait here, ma'am. And sir, would you please wait over here?
Thanks to the leadership of California Judicial Council's Tribal Court State Court Forum, the California State Sheriff's Association, the Office of the Attorney General, and other justice partners, Judge Abenanti and I are here to tell you that the law is very clear when it comes to the recognition and enforcement of tribal protection orders.
Public safety depends on our courts, both tribal and state courts, to issue orders and law enforcement to enforce them. When that doesn't happen, the justice systems, both tribal and state, have failed our citizens. What follows can be devastating to the lives of our children and families. It creates situations where victims are re-victimized.
This is why we came together to address the problem. As a result of our collaboration, the California Department of Justice issued this information bulletin, which summarizes the law. You'll find a link to the information bulletin in the resources section of this video and other resources should you have questions or want to have further reading or training on the subject. Turning to the video you just watched, the information bulletin makes it very clear that federal and state law require the officer to enforce the tribal protection order on the spot. The law requires the officer to give the tribal court order full faith and credit. He should not be calling the tribal court to check the validity of the order, nor should he question the order because he doesn't recognize the tribal court. Again, the law is very clear on this point. The Federal Violence Against Women Act and California Family Code mandate that courts and law enforcement recognize and enforce protection orders from other jurisdictions as if they were issued in their jurisdiction.
So what if the officer says they won't enforce the order because they're not sure it's valid?
Well, as long as the order identifies the protected individual, the individual against whom the order is sought, and appears valid on its face, it's enforceable.
Okay, great. Thank you. What if the officer says they won't enforce the order because it isn't a certified order?
No, the officer cannot require certification.
Okay, great. So what if the officer says they won't enforce the order because it's not registered or filed with the state?
No, the officer cannot require registration or filing.
What if the officer says the order isn't enforceable because the officer isn't able to verify that it's in the statewide database? Law enforcement practice has been to verify tribal protection orders through the California Law Enforcement Telecommunication System, the one we all refer to as CLETS. What we hear in Indian country is that law enforcement does not get a hit in CLETS. If they do not get a hit in CLETS, then the officer will not enforce that order.
I understand that that's been the practice in California, but the DOJ Information Bulletin is very clear about this.
So basically, a tribal court protection order must be enforced. An officer cannot require certification, registration, or verification in a statewide database like CLETS.
This public service announcement, introduced by the California Attorney General, is critical information for every law enforcement officer to understand and follow. My name is Sheriff Martin Ryan from Amador County. Last year, when I was president of the California State Sheriff's Association, I had the pleasure of working with the Judicial Council's Tribal Court State Court Forum, the California Attorney General's Office, and other justice partners to change how law enforcement responds to tribal protection orders. The problem we were having was that in some jurisdictions, officers were checking to see if orders issued by the tribal courts were certified, registered, or verified in a statewide database like CLETS before they enforced them. I'm here to tell you that this is not the law, nor is it good law enforcement practice. Responding to domestic violence calls for service is one of the most volatile and dangerous situations for victims and police officers. They lead to about 14% of officer deaths every year, according to the FBI. It is imperative when officers respond to a domestic violence call, they recognize that they're walking into a potentially dangerous and unpredictable scene. Just like there is no such thing as a routine traffic stop, there is no such thing as a routine domestic violence call. Officers must approach each domestic violence case with the highest level of caution, while maintaining an open mind and seeking ways to offer assistance and protection to the victims of such abuse. And when the victim has a protection order, whether issued by a state court or tribal court, it must be enforced immediately. If you are a law enforcement officer and would like resources for training on this topic, contact the Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, also known as POST, which was established by the legislature in 1959 to set minimum selection and training standards for California law enforcement. You will find a link in resources. If you're a judge from a tribal court or state court and would like resources for training on this topic, contact the Judicial Council's tribal state programs. They offer steps to justice domestic violence services focusing on tribal state county collaboration. At the request of a judge, staff will tailor an educational event to meet local educational needs or provide technical assistance in response to locally identified targeted needs. You'll find a link in resources. We hope you found this video helpful. Thank you for your attention to this very important issue.